Hello, everybody, and welcome to round 5 of the 2021 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the popular Autodromo Internacional do Algarve here in Portimao, the second ever time the top class has raced here for the running of the Portuguese Grand Prix. I am JW97, and I am joined today not by Ra this time, but by F2 commentator Rob.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hello,
Hello,
Rob. You were a
welcome,
little bit delayed.
everybody. Thank you for having me, and I'm very excited to be here. Oh no, that
Yes,
was on
indeed,
purpose.
and
I muted myself for just a little bit so I could sort some stuff out. But we're here, and I'm very excited for this session, Joe.
indeed so, and the second time, of course, that the top class will be racing here in Portimao. It was an exciting race here last season, hopefully an exciting racing prospect this season as well, especially as we're into the 5th race of the fantasy era. As you can see, we've got bright and sunny conditions for the practice session, no rain expected, and without further ado, let's get into the 40-minute practice session. And of course, for the first time this season, we in fact have a test driver in the car today. It's the first time we've got a book session in for this season, and it is in the form of Gabriel Gomez, who will be driving the Alfa Romeo today in place of Andrea Vaderi. So Gabriel Gomez is in the Alfa Romeo today doing testing duties. First time this season, still yet to get a requested one in. We know that Dennis Graff was trying his best to get a requested one in, but failed to do so, which was a little bit of a shame. But here we are, really. So we are here at Portimao. Last season, of course, Franco Lopez won here in the Mercedes. Whether he can do that this season, though, it will be interesting to see. He has seemingly, perhaps, you could say, possibly got his form back from the last race at the German Grand Prix. But we'll get onto that in a little bit, Rob, because some breaking news happened earlier on today. For anybody who didn't see the news, of course, it hasn't been on Twitter or on Discord at all today, it has been confirmed that Franco Gamba, the current championship leader, will be leaving the top class at the end of the season. This will be his final season in the top class. Not his final season in the OC, though. He has also confirmed that he will be intending to take part in another series next season from 2022. But as far as the top class is concerned, this will be his final season. And to me, it was a little bit of a shock, to be honest with you. I honestly didn't think that Gamba would retire, because given that he is the current championship leader, Rob, and given he's got a 21-point lead, I would have thought he would have tried to stick around a little bit longer, but clearly he feels time is up.
Well, when I saw his announcement that he was going to announce something, I knew something was up, because what else could it have been? So of course I had the feeling this was going to be it. But yeah, it's still a little bit shocking, and he's at the top of his game. You wouldn't be expecting him to announce an end to his career like that. Well, maybe he wants to finish it at the top of his game.
Perhaps so indeed. Maybe he wants to end his time in the top class in the same way that both Will Nella and Florian Volker ended their times at the top class, finishing at the top of the standings. Whether he will do that or not, it remains to be seen. Of course, it is debated, of course, that the Red Bull is the quickest car on the grid. So whether he's able to win the championship this season is going to be another question. We're only into round 5 of the season, of course, so anything could still happen in these remaining, 17 races, including this one? So anything could still happen at this point. So whatever the case is, we wish Franco all the best after this season. Of course, he isn't leaving the OC. I should point that one out. He is intending to continue in 2022, but in another series. It's just for the top class. It will be a game up for him. So will he be able to finish his career on a high? I guess we'll have to find out in these remaining 17 races, Rob.
Well, yeah, that's true. He's built a 21-point lead in these first 4 races, which is an impressive achievement. But do keep in mind, it's easier to gain back to claw back the deficit in 17 races. So yeah, this season is far from over, and I don't think he should rest on his laurels just yet. He's gonna need to give it 100% in every session, qualifying and races. Q-Puck has had a little bit of a lockup there.
Indeed so, and it's fair to say that if you were on Discord, his eyes were wide open about that announcement. Whatever that means, I don't know. But anyway, so that was the news that came out earlier today. Franco Gamba, this is his final season in the top class. Can he walk away with the title he's been craving for a while? And on top of that, become the first GP2 champion to win the top class title as well. We've yet to have a GP2 champion win this series as well. So could he be the first to do that before he ends up going to Well, wherever he ends up next season. He has said he's still yet to make his mind up, though, on whereabouts he'll end up in 2022. He hasn't fully made his mind up yet as to whether it will be either DTM, Formula E, or the new World Champ Car Series. So, be interested to see how that one plays out. But anyway, moving away from that, of course, obviously, although we do have F2 this week, Rob, I think it's going to be a little bit strange for anybody who hasn't seen the schedules as to why we haven't seen any F2 action so far. And that is because both the qualifying and the race are happening tomorrow, of course. And that is because, for anybody who doesn't know, the host Florian is currently, well, traveling back from Austria, I believe, as I speak, or is about to travel back from Austria today. And he wants a little bit of time on his, he wants a little bit of time ready to charge the batteries before starting the F2 races on, well, the F2 sessions on the Wednesday. It was originally meant to be before the top class race at Portimao, the F2 sessions, but he's left it till after the Portimao race for the top class. Portimao race for the top class, I should say. And so around 7 p.m. BST is when the qualifying and the race will happen for F2 here at Portimao. And so obviously you'll be hearing Rob's voice tomorrow night as well. So
Well, yeah.
do you expect to be a very interesting race here at Portimao tomorrow for F2, Rob?
Well, in the past 2 seasons, when Duke Corby won in 2019 and just race with the one in 2020, it was rather boring, but I think third time will be the charm. Thankfully, I don't have to work today or tomorrow, so I can just rest my voice and get ready, because I'll have quite a lot of work to do for commentary tomorrow.
Indeed so. Of course, you're doing a little bit of commentary today as well, given that there's no
Yeah,
F2
indeed.
today, of course. So that's that really. So whilst we've been speaking, we've had a few lap times on the board. Garber, the man who, of course, is announcing his top class retirement, as it were, he's currently at the top by 0.2 of a second as his teammate George Rote. There's a little bit of a moment going through into turn one there, so a little bit of a mistake there for George Rote. And currently at the top by 0.2 had a Chris Chatfield, who's currently in second. Franco Lopez in third. We might as well talk about him because we mentioned it a little bit earlier on, Rob. It looks like he may have got his form back, it seems, because in the last race at Hockenheim, we started to see the sides of the old Franco Lopez again. And it's a question now whether he can keep this up or not. But last time out, Lopez finally getting some good luck on his side.
Well, I think he's definitely showing some signs of his past self, the past self that won here last season and also won the championship both seasons in a row. However, this Mercedes has been horrifically inconsistent so far this season, so it's not just the driver, you need to keep in mind the car performance as well. But I think Lopez will be trying his absolute best to maximize what he can do on his end.
Yeah, we've seen throughout this season as well, the Mercedes doesn't seem to be the best qualifier, but when it comes to race trim, they've definitely got some good pace. So it's obviously, clearly on one lap pace, it's obviously an area where Mercedes really need to sort themselves out. Here is Miklos Gau in the Alpha Tauri. Might as well talk about the Alpha Tauri a little bit because obviously I don't think anybody really noticed this, but I noticed this after I edited the German Grand Prix highlights. But on the front wing where it said Red Bull, it was the wrong way around. It said Bull Red Butt for the first 4 races. I have no idea
Oh my God.
how I made that mistake, and I don't know how I didn't notice that until after I edited the German Grand Prix highlights and it said Bull Red on the front wing instead of Red Bull. But it's been fixed now, and it now does say Red Bull on the front wing. So error resolved there, so that error is kind of sorted out. But yeah, it's going to be, if anybody watches back on the first 4 races, it probably could be something to laugh about with it saying the words Bull Red on it. So take that as you will, I guess. So,
Changing the placement of those 2 logos is gonna make them 2.3 seconds a lap faster, I guarantee.
okay, fair enough. Oh, it turns out that Flo is already home. He's just resting for today and also for a little bit tomorrow, which is understandable. Trying to recharge the batteries before the streams tomorrow, so understandable in that regard. We're running on board with Franco Garbu. He's currently stuck behind, I think that's Amelia Wilson in front, because I know that both Fraser and Wilson have a different sponsor on the where the roll bar is, and of course the rear wing. So that's
I didn't actually notice who are their sponsors.
Well, because it is because they are obviously Deutsche Post SF1 team. They've got both the companies on there. So one car has got Deutsche Post, the German company, of course, and the other one, of course, which is the company they own, which is DHL, the American company. So
Right,
that's why that's on there as well. Kind of similar to what we see with the Alfa Romeo as well, with having them have their 2 different car brands on. Well, they're different car models on there, the Giulia and the Stelvio, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken.
Speaking
It's
of
also
Alfa
come up.
Romeo, look at that lap from Gabriel Gomez. Quite impressive. We have there in P5. Fresh off his plane ticket from Wisconsin after that Road America Racing World Champ car, of course.
Indeed, so yes. If anybody watched that Wisconsin race in Road America, he obviously finished second last over there on Sunday after a final lap battle with his teammate Igor Peter. Currently, it's a 1-2-3 for the Brazilians in that championship at the moment. The
I
Brazilians.
petition to rename it to Brazil Champ car because they're the only guys who win there.
Yeah, at the moment it seems so. Yeah, it's so far just been Bruno de Barros and Igor Peter that have won races in the World Champ Car at the moment. Hopefully, somebody else wins during the season, and hopefully it's not just those two. But we'll wait and see on that, of course. Obviously, they're going to
Yeah,
Laguna Seca next, not this weekend, but next weekend,
Rogue's
and
gonna have it
should
the
be interesting.
third meanwhile.
Three now for the Red Bulls. George Roque up in third place. A man who obviously wants to forget what happened at the German Grand Prix. Of course, a lot of people nickname Hockenheim the Rokenheim, given that he's won there a few times in the past. But in the last race, we never really got to see what he could have done on that one-stop strategy because unfortunately his suspension decided to let him go.
Yeah, unfortunately so. And I've won there as well, so maybe we can call it the Robbenheim sponsored by George Rogue, or I don't know. Nevertheless, he'll be a little disappointed. He'll be just majorly disappointed with what happened, but I think he's put all that behind him. Just gonna go full focus on to this race. He's got some Renaults and the teammate that he's got to beat.
Indeed so. Speaking of the Renaults, of course, we might as well talk about them because, well, Evan Byrne, after many, many attempts, finally returned to the top step of the podium for the first time since the 2012 Spanish Grand Prix. He had been teasing it for quite a while. You've got to remember last season as well at the Malaysian Grand Prix. Looked like that race was going to go to him, and then his engine decided to let him go. Came close to winning at the Chinese Grand Prix earlier on in the season, but just missed out, of course, to Armar. But finally, nobody stopped him this time, and Evan Byrne finally back on the top step of the podium, Rob. Sorry, not Rob.
Well, throughout his career, Evan had a little bit of a history of changing teams all the time early on. But now, for the past few years, he's been staying nice at Renault, staying consistently, hoping they improve and give him a good car. And I think they struck gold this season. They've given him a really competitive car, and we know how talented he is. We know how much he's got. With that car underneath him, he's finally able to show it.
Indeed so, and of course over the last few races, the last couple of races, you may have seen that the top four grid positions have usually consisted of Red Bulls and Renaults, and I think it's safe to say that you could say that Renault probably have the second quickest car on the grid, closely followed by Mercedes, you'd have to say. But yeah, it definitely seems that in terms of the new era, the fantasy era, seems that Renault have definitely turned a corner in their performances, and who knows, they may have a championship challenging car this season.
Could be the case, but let's not forget one crucial aspect this season. What good is having a fast car if you can't keep that consistency up? As you may know, Ferrari and Mercedes had flashes of brilliance, and even Lamborghini, but just nowhere near as consistently as Red Bull and Renault. I've said it since the first day of testing. Uh, the other team may be quick from time to time. Red Bull and Renault have always been.
I think Rob's
Can
kind of
you
disappeared there because he kind of keeps on crackling a little bit, I think. So hopefully that gets sorted out. So
Oh,
yeah, basically it seems like he's still having problems. I thought we had him back there just for a brief moment. But anyway, yeah, basically if you can't have the
okay, is
consistency
it
of
back?
you it's back now. You were saying about having consistency, really, if you're going to challenge for the championship. I mean, to bring it onto your point,
Yeah.
of course. Although Byrne is currently fourth in the drivers' championship, let's not forget he has retired twice this season at the first race in Australia and, of course, at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So yeah, so it's one of those things that you could argue, whilst he's won at Hockenheim, could be one of those things that he needs to sort out a little bit.
Well, there's nothing you can do about the past results right now, but I think all those disappointments are just motivating him to perform better. And he's one last race, of course. He'll be hoping he can build some momentum and really mount up and recover the points he lost thanks to those retirements earlier in the season.
Indeed, and meanwhile, we're having a look now at Roland Motrin in the Aston Martin, currently finding himself in 9th position. And, well, what a terrible season so far it's been for Roland Motrin. Of course, he came close to winning a couple of times last season, but so far this season, 3 out of the first 4 races, he's qualified on the back row of the grid. He just hasn't been able to get to grips with that Aston Martin so far, Rob, compared to his teammate Anderson.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure what's going on, really. We know Motrin has the potential, has the speed, but maybe something in the balance of the car, maybe just the setup preference that he's not happy with. But nevertheless, I'm generally surprised how badly he's been performing so far, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's obviously something that he definitely needs to sort out, because so far his qualifying has not been ideal, and so far in the races this season he hasn't also been that ideal either, especially when you compare it to his teammate Julius Anderson, as we talked about earlier on. Anderson, you could definitely say he's having a much better season than Roland, even though this season's Aston Martin is clearly taking a backward step compared to last season when they were Racing Point. But yeah, it's a little bit of a confusing situation what's going on at Roland. He'll be hoping to try and sort that one out here, and hopefully try and get some redemption here at the Portuguese Grand Prix, which, by the way, is another track that he came quite close to winning at last season, obviously, but in the end, of course, after the accident that happened, and we'll get onto that in just a little bit, with the accident that happened with Armar Carr, obviously he took the lead, but in the end Lopez just caught him up and managed to pass him right on the exit of the hairpin, really. Did the old famous switchback on Roland Motrin there, clearly caught napping on that occasion. But yes, last season, you may remember, there was quite a controversial accident that happened here with Armar Carr, let's not forget, because arguably he should have won this race last season had it not been for a crash with a back marker, that back marker at the time being Kirishima De Rosa, and although we didn't know it at the time, Rob, it was one of the few catalysts that arguably cost Carr the World Championship last season.
Yeah, may very well have been the case. But I'm not going to comment too much because I haven't actually watched last season's race. I haven't had the time to do everything, I'm afraid. But yeah, looking back at it, I think Carr went into the second half of last season with a big deficit to recover. He gave his very best shot, and dragging on the title fight all the way to the last race was certainly very impressive. But what might have been if not for those incidents?
What might have been indeed, and well, he may have a chance to redeem himself here this season, because so far, although the Mercedes is not as it used to be in the past, it's very clear that Carr has definitely had the better season compared to Lopez, although we did say this last season at this point, and then the tables turned after those critical moments in the championship, which arguably cost Carr the World Championship in 2020, one of them being at this racetrack. So obviously one of the circuits that he did get redemption at, though you could say in a way, was at Hockenheim. Of course, he ended up finishing 4th last time out at Hockenheim. After previous seasons, it hasn't really been kind to Armar Carr, whether it was in terms of strategy or just in form of bad luck, really. But yeah, Carr, it's fair to say he's been very critical of this year's Mercedes, it's fair to say, in terms of qualifying trim. And, well, we talked about earlier how Mercedes have so far been a little bit inconsistent with their qualifying, because we know that their race pace generally seems to be better than their qualifying pace. But, yeah, he has been generally critical, if anybody has seen. And, well, he obviously got the bad brunt of it last time out in Hockenheim, because he failed to make it into Q3, unlike in the previous 3 races where it was Lopez who was struggling to get out of Q2.
Well, what can I say about it, really? When you've had the best car for many years in a row, and then all of a sudden you don't have the best car anymore, and you're not as quick as you hope to be. Obviously, you're gonna be disappointed. You're gonna be frustrated. If I was the Mercedes team principal, I definitely would not be happy with Armar Carr's comments. But since I'm not, I completely understand them. And of course, he is disappointed with the car he's got this season. But even so, I think even despite that, he's improved as a driver.
I think that is fair to say, yeah. I think Carr has definitely upped it a little bit more this season, even if the car is not where he wants it to be at the moment. But it's not out of the question for Carr, because let's not forget, he is currently second in the Drivers' Championship, 21 points behind Franco Gambo. And given that we know the Mercedes has got particularly good race pace, he'll be hoping that he can use that to his advantage throughout the rest of the season. Of course, it's obviously understandable in a way why Carl is a little bit frustrated this season, because after the disappointment of 2020, he was hoping to bounce back this season and try and get that World Championship he's been craving for quite a while. But so far, things have not gone the way he hoped they panned this season. And, well, he'll be hoping
It's a long shot, but I think it can really go either way. I'm not just talking about the guys P1 and P2 right now, Gamba and Ka. I think we're still far too early to make a prediction. Sure, Gamba looks good right now. Ka is overperforming his car, but you can never really tell what's going to happen from now until we get to lap 71 at Interlagos. As Jake Galloway is just going to third fastest, Joe.
Yep, these two Ferraris looking just like they did in Hockenheim, really. In Hockenheim, they look particularly strong in practice as well. It seems the same case has happened here at Portimao, but haven't been able to string it in so far in qualifying this season, have the Ferraris, which is I'm a little bit surprised with, to be honest with you, Rob, because when we were commentating on the first day of pre-season testing, the Ferrari, on the hands of Jake Galloway at least, looked particularly strong, but they've not been able to replicate that so far since then.
That might have been a one-off. Because let's not forget that day while Galloway was stopping the session, Troutfield was struggling just a little bit. I think Ferrari definitely have some strength on the high downforce tracks, same for Mercedes. And this is a high downforce track compared to China, really, because we got one long straight and then just a bunch of corners, really, and one short straight, pretty much. And yeah, obviously this isn't the greatest news for Renault. They've got quite an amazing engine. But with only 2 real overtaking opportunities, I'm not sure they can put the most of it to good use. So I think real opportunity for Mercedes and Ferrari to catch back up to those front 2 teams, Joe.
Perhaps indeed, although it should be worth noting with Renault as well that in most practice sessions they usually leave it right till the very end to put in a very competitive time, and who knows whether they're doing that so far. I mean, we're looking at Evan Byrne right now, of course the previous winner of the German Grand Prix, currently down in 15th position. You've got his teammate Jesus Perinen, who's up in 6th position. Might as well talk about Perinen. I think it's fair to say, you know, all the hype that's surrounding him. So far, he's doing a particularly good job. Of course, at Hockenheim, it wasn't really ideal. The free-stop strategy not working the way that he was hoping. But so far, pretty good rookie season for Jesus.
I don't think I have any complaints, really. I'm not going to give a boring speech about it. So, yeah, I think he's done the best he could so far. Obviously, there's room for improvement, but he is brand new to this top class, of course. So, yeah, no problem with his season at all from my side. As Roku proves yet again, get back in 3rd place.
And now we've got Chatfield, who's in the middle of a Red Bull sandwich, and Roku's in the middle of a Ferrari sandwich. 2 sandwiches in the price of 1 there, I guess. So,
speaking of Portugal and China, Cody's, I thought they were going to be in F122, and are you adding them? But never mind the tongue-in-cheek reference. Here we have Miklos Galwar on board with him in the AlphaTauri, and yeah, their pace has been nowhere so far this season.
Yeah, AlphaTauri, we talked about it when we did commentary during pre-season testing. They've definitely gone backwards this season of AlphaTauri. They've had a couple of good moments this season with David Cupot, but for Miklos Gal, it's been kind of the opposite story, really. I mean, he showed brilliant pace in China, but yeah, he just hasn't been able to replicate that so far this season. And we knew when we talked about it, of course, Miklos was expecting a challenge at AlphaTauri. He wasn't expecting to be fighting at the front straight away, but it's safe to say, Rob, I don't think he was expecting this sort of challenge.
If he had decided to remain at Red Bull, there's no doubt he could have had the seat. If he decided to remain, he might have been the elite in World Championship right now. Instead, they have him at the very back. I'm not saying he made the wrong decision, because in the long term, who knows how it's going to end up, but I think he is definitely very disappointed right now.
He even said as well after the first day of pre-season testing he was going to have to change his targets for the remainder of for this season, because it's clearly going to be a bit of a struggle for AlphaTauri. But I guess for them, an achievement for them with this car is to hopefully not finish last in the Constructors' Championship, which unfortunately they dropped to last time out because Williams were able to pick up their first points of the season, which means that in the space of only just 4 races, all 11 teams have scored at least just 1 point this season, and Jamie Griffiths, a brilliant performance of him at Hockenheim, picking up Williams' first points of the season.
Well, I hate to say it, but I think AlphaTauri finishing last this season is a foregone conclusion. In my opinion, as Chad has a little bit of an understeer moment there into Galp, in my opinion, AlphaTauri have got to forget about this season and just play the long game, focus on the future.
Indeed so, and obviously Gal's aim is to hopefully make him as competitive as Red Bull in the past. You may remember back in 2008 when Toro Rosso, when they were Toro Rosso, of course, they had a better car than Red Bull, even though the Red Bull chassis, which was basically the same as the same chassis as what Toro Rosso was using, was mainly built for a Renault engine, but clearly the Ferrari engine seemed to work better in that chassis compared to the Renault engine somehow. And of course, that's why they were able to have that brilliant season in 2008, where they finished fourth in the Constructors' Championship with Florian Volker and Miklos Gal, ironically, as their driver lineup. So, of course, they got a win in 2008, let's not forget, with Miklos Gal. So, whether he can get them back to that sort of position that we've seen them in the past, we'll have to wait and see. But so far, not the best of starts for Gal's return to the Faenza team. So,
He's going to need
anyway,
to make
we're looking.
sure he gets retained by the team, of course, just because he's a former world champion does not guarantee his seat will be safe. He still needs to put in those performances to guarantee he can remain there and make that agenda of his come true.
We'll have to wait and see, of course. But anyway, so far then, Garber's still at the top by 0.2 of a second ahead of Chatfield. The top two has not really moved since the beginning of the session, it is fair to say, as Gomes has made his way out of the Samsung corner there. Here is Armar Carr, currently in 5th position at the moment, and looking to hopefully have a good weekend here at Portimao and hopefully get through into Q3 unlike last time out in Hockenheim. The Haas team, we were briefly going to talk about. I was going to talk about them before we swiftly moved on there. Of course, it's been a very good season for Haas, it's fair to say. I think they've been a bit of a surprise this season, it's fair to say, Haas. Especially Daniel Fraser, who, let's not forget, a lot of people thought was going to get booted out of a seat at the end of 2020, and were a little bit surprised when he got retained for 2021. But he's so far been proving a lot of people wrong this season, has scored a total of, I believe it's 14 points so far to land himself in 11th in the championship. Of course, last time out in Hockenheim, it wasn't the best race for them. A lot of damage bills needed at Haas last time out in Hockenheim. But overall, it's been a very good season for Haas and for Daniel Fraser as well.
Yeah, indeed, Haas have definitely turned the wick up from last season. But for their two drivers, I think it's a complete mirror image as Lopez going to 5th from what they did last season. Last season, of course, Amelia Wilson was absolutely destroying her teammate Rosella Martinez back when she was at Manor, and Daniel Fraser was trying to cling on to dear life for a seat. Now I think it's pretty much the exact opposite, really.
Yeah, so far this season, there's big lock up there for Jesus Perinen going through the roller coaster section of the track. One is actually called Portimao, oddly enough. You can see there, just as he came out of Craig Jones there, that is the corner name, I think. Big lockup going into Portimao there, pushing a little bit hard on this lap there, and that wouldn't have done his tyres any good whatsoever.
Downhill braking zone always going to be extremely difficult, especially if you're running below downforce, as we've seen Renault do quite often this season. Maybe they're going to need some tweaks on the setup to prevent more lockups like that.
We'll see, of course, as Perinen just makes his way around the final corner there. Is Gomez, the test driver for Alfa Romeo today, having a good session in the Alfa Romeo so far. Currently in 9th position, currently getting some slipstream from Miklos Gal in front as he looks to try and pass him down into the first corner. That's a bit more of a mistake there for Jesus Perinen, and clearly not getting struggling around this track so far, Rob.
Definitely needs to get that setup changed before qualifying.
Indeed,
Though, having said that, while his teammate will be Ganrick Data, Hespernian will be entering qualifying. If they do change the setup, they'll be entering quali on uncharted territory.
Yeah, indeed, and that's not going to be good news if that is the case as well. And
maybe lower those brake pressures a tad or something. That could help, but nevertheless, Hespernian is having a tough practice session. Of course, that can very easily be mitigated. Practice amounts to essentially nothing, but it's definitely going to dent his confidence a little bit.
Indeed so, as we ride on board with Daniel Fraser in the Haas. He's just come out of the pits, as Anderson slightly improves but remains in 17th position. Patel only down in 18th at the moment in the Lamborghini. Of course, we do see similar trends with the Lambo, and then they start to put the hammer down when it comes to qualifying. And so far this season, Lamborghini, although they have been very strong this season, fair to say, still yet to get both cars through into Q3. Same goes with Mercedes this season. And, well, could that happen today? Who knows, really. But they have come close a few times, Rob, but always failing to miss out right towards the end, as Perrin, again, getting a little bit too wavy with that car.
Well, for Lamborghini, I think they shook not they shook, sorry, they surprised a lot of people when they got that amazing pole position in Australia. But you spoke earlier, Joe. You said Mercedes have been struggling on qualifying and have been having strong race pace. I think for Lamborghini it's been the exact opposite. But even so, they couldn't quite get both cars in Q3 just yet. And yeah, there aren't many overtaking opportunities here in Portimao. It is rather difficult. You're gonna have to try pretty hard if you're gonna get the move done. It's not impossible, of course, but it means track position is very crucial. And if you qualify well here, you might just be in for a good result. So let's see if Lamborghini can do that.
Indeed so. Meanwhile, Yui's just mentioned in our little Discord thing that he's currently working on a way to try and have practice in all three qualifyings on basically one save file, so that the team setups can stay consistent throughout a whole race meeting. Really, he believes with Flow's new system it could be possible. So we'll wait and see on that if there is a way to do that. But for the meantime, it's just
I don't think Hellos will be happy with that if it happens today.
Yeah, indeed. But luckily it won't. It's clearly still a work in progress, and obviously something that could happen in behind the scenes. But anyway, back to the action out on track at the moment, as Griffiths is currently getting overtaken by one of the Haas cars at the moment. I think that might be Daniel Fraser that's trying to get by him there. No, it's Amelia Wilson. I do apologise. Number 28 Haas. Griffiths coming back into the pits this lap as somebody just came out in front there, and it was Joseph Willows who just comes out in front of a Renault and an Alfa Romeo there. And we haven't really talked about McLaren so far much in this session so far. And well, it was a bit of a mixed bag in Hockenheim for McLaren, it's fair to say. Willows finishing in 7th at the German Grand Prix, but Kirishima De Rosa, well, being Kirishima De unlucky once again, it's fair to say. Another mechanical failure, another retirement for Kirishima De Rosa, and, well, his bad luck just seems to transfer over to this season, Rob.
Well, I think McLaren, they showed a decent pace and they won a preseason, but ever since then, I think they've always been wanting to do just a little bit better, and yeah, pretty weak start of the season for them so far. I think there's a lot on the table that they haven't been able to unlock yet.
Yes, I've been talking about it for the last few races. They do have quite a bit of potential. We do see them putting in some very good lap times, but they've never been able to execute it properly for whatever reason. And, well, it's just really that, really. And whether we'll be able to see them do it this week, I'm not sure. But they've been so far struggling to get really a hold of this car. Really, they've been very inconsistent this season, and McLaren, despite the potential that car could potentially have. And well, who knows really whether they'll be able to sort that one out. But so far, as mentioned, De Rosa been very unlucky compared to Joseph Willows, who's so far been having a relatively okay season. It's fair to say. I'd say it's a lot better
Speaking
than what it
of
was last season. Speaking of De Rosa, he goes up into 6th, so now 6th and 8th for the two McLarens. But so far, it's fair to say that Joseph is probably having a better season than Kero this season. Probably a much better season than he had last season, because let's not forget, at the beginning of the season last season, Joseph, for the most part at the beginning of the season, struggled to get his car through into Q2, but the second half of the season he started to obviously turn it around. But yeah, it was a bit of a weird bag for Joseph last season. Of course, his first season back at McLaren, after being so used to being in a top class for many seasons, he found himself in the midfield, and of course 2020 was the first time he experienced a winless season. His 100% winning streak coming to an end last season, and he'll be looking to see if he can try and get a victory this season. But so far, the consistency of McLaren has been a little bit debatable, as we've just been alluding to there. But yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah, I was saying, well, last season when Joseph Willows got back to McLaren, he found it wasn't exactly quite the same McLaren that he won the championship with twice. And yeah, I think last season he had to do a lot of acclimating to get back to his old team. And speaking of De Rosa, he's improved yet again. But yeah, Willows, he used that last year, even though it was tricky, back at McLaren, to help understand the team, understand what the car is like now. And yeah, I think this season he's obviously had the measure of his teammates so far. We got a long way to go.
Indeed. Moving on then, we're looking at Roman Quag, who's currently in 13th position. It's fair to say he's having a much better season compared to his teammate Andrea Vaderi. De Rosa was up in 4th, but now Galloway has got back up into 4th position ahead of De Rosa. But Roman Quag, a very good return to the top class so far, but it's fair to say it was very, very, very cruel way for him to retire from the last. Well, I say retire, but to have a mechanical failure towards the end of the race because he was running in ninth and looking good to get some more points for Alfa Romeo. But unfortunately, well, his car decided to let him down on the final lap of the race whilst he was running in ninth.
I didn't watch the race, so I can't comment. But yeah, it was disappointing, very much so.
Especially when he was running up in ninth place, as I mentioned there, and as a result, missed out on a very good points haul once again for Alfa Romeo. But I think it's fair to say, if you look at the season as a whole, Rob, Quag has definitely picked off where he left off the last time he was in the top class, and definitely showing the pace that he showed when he was last here in the top class.
So far, yeah, that is the case, absolutely.
And whether he can keep that up or not, we'll have to wait and see. But Quag definitely having a very impressive return to the top class. Same really with Julius Anderson, it's fair to say. We're looking at Amelia Wilson, and you mentioned earlier on how it's not really plain sailing for Amelia Wilson so far this season, because a lot of people were expecting, when it was announced that she was going to be joining Haas to replace the retiring Dudu Kirby, everybody expected her to possibly beat Daniel Fraser, but it hasn't been plain sailing for her so far.
Well, she had to move teams, of course, because when she signed up to Manor, everybody knew they would withdraw after last season. So yeah, when she joined Manor, she knew she'd have to change teams the year after. She's moved to Haas, and I think she needs some time to adjust before she can challenge Daniel Fraser. Because even though Fraser struggled last season, he's been at the team for a couple of seasons. So yeah, I think Wilson, she could definitely be doing much better than this. Right now, it hasn't been going according to her plan, I think, but still got a long way to go. I've said this many, many times. Everything can happen.
Indeed so. Here is Jesus Prunen, who's just come out onto the track. I wonder if he has since then tried to get a different setup in, because obviously the last time we saw him, he was just going all over the place on the racetrack. Lockups everywhere, going wide here and there.
Yeah, never. So this is a woeful practice session for Renault.
But as I mentioned, as we've seen a few times in previous practice sessions, usually towards the end of the session is when they start to turn up the wick a little bit. So we'll wait and see if Byrne and Prillen are able to do that towards the end of this practice session, as we have just over 5 minutes to go in this session. It's Garber still at the top with Chatfield in second, Roke in third, Galloway 4th, De Rosa 5th, Lopez in 6th with Carr 7th, Willows 8th, Purina 9th, and Gomez, the Alfa Romeo test driver, completing the top 10 at this point in time. And so still plenty of time for things to change, and so far, ever since the beginning of the session, no Franco Gamba has still stayed on that 1 minute 17.111 as he looks to try and make it 3 pole positions in a row. Of course, took pole at Baku, took pole at Hockenheim. Now he's looking to try and see if he can make it 3 in a row here in Portimao, in what is, as we'll remind people if they didn't see the news, what is now his final season in the top class, because of course he will be leaving the top class at the end of this season. Will he walk away though with the championship in similar fashion to what we saw with Will Neller and Florian Volker in both 2017 and 2018? As we have just under 5 minutes to go now in the session, well, 4.5 minutes to go, I should say, as Garber coming back out to do one more run before the end of this practice session. So
as Chatfield goes out on track, I just wanted to touch Joe. This has been an incredible session for Ferrari. I said they might be stronger here to a high downforce settings that this track is, and yeah, so far in practice they've really delivered. Unlike Renault, who have been surprisingly bad. Let's see if they can turn the wick up now. Ferrari, very, very impressive. They got their cars up in P2 and P4. They haven't been consistent so far this season, but at the moment they're the second quickest team. That can very well change, of course.
Indeed, we have seen in the past, of course, things can change between practice and qualifying. So whether they can keep that up or not, we will have to wait and see. Of course, for Chris Chatfield, he'll be hoping to keep keep this momentum up, because the last two races have been a bit of a disaster for him. Really, was pretty much put on the wrong strategy at the last at Baku, of course, where he only finished in 12th, and then it was a disaster in Hockenheim, of course, getting damaged twice during the race, and then his race eventually ending thanks to a mechanical failure. So obviously the last two races he'll want to forget about completely, Rob.
Chatfield has moved on from it though, and he's got full focus on today.
Indeed, and we'll have to wait and see whether he can have a good weekend here at Portimao, as Lopez has currently got one of the Red Bulls right behind him. That is Franco Gamba, his fellow Franco. Of course, the last season that we'll have the two Francos on the grid, of course. So it'll be very interesting to see how that one ends up. Whilst you were speaking there,
the person named Fred might get a seat next time.
Who knows, really? Meanwhile, as we were speaking there, Gal is actually set the same time as Jamie Griffiths, just at the bottom of the standings, but of course Griffiths set the time first, so he's able to stay in 21st, whereas Gal is still in 22nd position. We saw Perinen go up into 8th position after his first flying lap after he just came back out of the pits there. Burns still down in 15th, as Perinen now actually goes up into 7th, so he's starting to pick it up. There's a big lock up there for David just before coming into Samsung there, and before going onto the roller coaster bit of the circuit. But yeah, massive lock up there for David Kupok as Gamba gets by on Lopez there into the first corner. We have just under 2 minutes to go in this session. I think we're going to remain on board with these drivers for the remainder of those 2 minutes, as Chatfield doesn't improve that time by. Amelia Wilson crosses the line and she stays where she is. Roman Quagg in the Alfa Romeo across the line, he stays where he is for the moment. Fraser, I think his session is done with, he's just coming back into the pit. As we look at Julius Anderson in the Aston Martin now then, currently 17th at the moment in this session, and he stays 17th.
Stays there.
At that moment. Kupok doesn't improve, Byrne doesn't improve either. Gomez, no improvement for him there. Here comes Laura Chung in the Lamborghini, and she doesn't improve. Patel does, but only up into 12th position there.
Teammate there.
Goes up to 7th meanwhile. Perinen not on an improvement as we speak. Of course, Chung, let's not forget, she's had damage in every race so far this season. She's been very unlucky when it comes to damage this season. Or did she have damage in Baku? I can't remember. No, she didn't have damage in Baku at all. But 3 of the first 4 races, she has had damage. But yeah, she's been very unlucky when it comes to having damage this season, and she'll be looking to see if she can erase that here in Portimao. Gamba, no improvement. Lopez, no improvement as expected because he got overtaken by Gamba at the first corner. Chatfield not improving as he's got one of the Aston Martins in front that he's probably trying to use. Rogue has started the lap, currently in 3rd position. Could he possibly try and make it a Red Bull 1-2 by the end of the session? Chatfield, no improvement there. Wilson, no improvement. Quagg's session is done with. He's come back into the pits as Byrne looking like again not on an improvement, so not the best of sessions, it's fair to say, on that time for Evan Byrne. So you might be right on this occasion, Rob. Not the best session for Renault, but they could still come back during the qualifying session. We'll have to wait and see. Byrne, across the line he will go. No improvement for him. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Checkered flag is out. That is the end of the session. Galloway just misses out there, so it was the Lamborghinis that were last across the line. I can't remember which order the Lamborghinis came in when they crossed the line, whether it was Chung or Patel that came across the line first, so we'll quickly double check that. It was Patel who was last across the line, so Patel, the last one to cross the line here in practice. As we look at Miklos Gau now then, who's down in last position and currently last in the Drivers' Championship. So odd to say that, given that he is a former world champion. Miklos Gau across the line. He will go now then, and no improvement, stays where he is. Same for Gamba. Lopez, no improvement. Rowe doesn't improve, he stays in third, so isn't able to make it a Red Bull 1-2 by the end of the session. Here comes Roland Motrin in the Aston Martin as he now makes his way through the final turn. Of course, needing to improve after what has been a tricky few qualifying sessions for the Hungarian. Motrin across the line. And no improvement, stays where he is. Chatfield, no improvement. Griffiths just getting some mileage. Wilson, cross the line. She will go. No improvement. Byrne is on an improvement now. He's gone up. So you could argue that maybe that Alpha Tauri that was in front of him was holding him up a bit. But let's see what Byrne can do then on this lap, on his final flying lap of practice, that is. Down the pit straight. And across the line. And no, only 15th that time, but he does improve, but stays, well, actually goes up a place into 15th. Chung, across the line, no improvement. Patel improve, and that's practice done with Garber top, Chatfield second, and Rokin third. So what do you make of that session overall, Rob?
I think Ferrari very much have shown a lot of strength here. Red Bull, of course, they're number one as per usual, but a lot of warning signs for Lamborghini and especially for Renault. Maybe they're bluffing or maybe they're genuinely in trouble. We'll have to wait until quali to find out.
Which won't be too far away. We're just going to take a brief pause for the moment, guys, and then we'll be back with a fresh stream for qualifying. But in the meantime, I've been JW97, he's been Robert Ionescu, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.